Ghosts in Us contains serious and sometimes disturbing events and is not suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
And there is the very distinct
This
shape
really
of a
dark
man.
figure that was standing in the doorway.
I'm living an episode of Kindred Spirits right now.
I just want them to tell me their stories.
So he thinks the life was sacrificed for the spell.
It had the crying boy painting.
Something demonic that was mocking me.
Are you kidding?
It was completely involuntary, but I started crying.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ghosts in Us podcast. Today, I have the lovely co-host Taylor here.
Hi.
Oh, I threw you off, didn't
Yeah.
I? And I have our lovely guest, Toni Shapiro. I want us to make sure I pronounce that correctly.
You did.
Okay, good. Toni Shapiro is here. Now, Toni, you had sent us a few of your articles that have been published about what happened to you and the things that have followed you through the years. But for our audience, do you mind kind of going into that a little bit?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Well, my paranormal encounters started at about age 4. I that's the best I can recollect the time being age 4. And it was pretty horrific. It was very, very terrifying. I had encountered a very malevolent being, but didn't start out that way. It started out with I was laying in bed with my mother. My sister and I both traded off either sleeping with mom or sleeping with grandma. The house only had 2 bedrooms. So this night I slept with my mom, facing the wall, the closest wall to me is, and in the corner, I was awakened by this sensation that, I think everybody can relate to this. If you've encountered anything that's paranormal, you can feel it before you actually see it. Sometimes, you can feel something either tingling in your body, or you feel something staring at you, or any number of things, maybe a chill, shiver or such. But I was so tiny, I had just opened my eyes in the middle of the night for whatever reason and looked directly across into that corner. And in the corner stood a little boy. I mean, it's the best I can explain him as being a small little boy, probably about 7 years old, maybe even less. But he stood in the corner, and he wasn't like any other children in the neighborhood. He was semi-translucent, to give you a picture of that, almost like hologram X-ray looking. Yet he was a little bit more solid than some of the other ghosts I've seen. Anyway, he just stood there, and we never spoke a word. It was basically just like a transfixed or transcended conversation, where this poor darling looked like he was just desperate, either desperate or he was pleading for me to forgive him for what was going to happen next. I've heard so many different things and theories about what he might have been doing. And one was quite interesting. I just learned not too long ago that he might have perhaps been keeping that vortex or gate or gateway or what have you open, because from what I'm learning is that a lot of them need to hold the veil open, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And, somebody has to be, one of these entities has to stand in that gap until whatever happens. Anyway, so he stood there, and I just, as a little tiny girl, I never questioned anything, and I wasn't afraid. I was just curious. And looking at him again, I can see him right now in my mind's eye. He was just so sad. His little brows were furrowed, and he just looked like he was just, like I said, begging or pleading or either for help or to forgive what was bound to happen. And in just a moment, after we had stared at each other for, I guess, a few seconds or so, suddenly this other entity stepped out from behind him, from in the corner of the wall, and I was instantly terrified. So terrified that when I tried to gasp, get air to scream, I couldn't even scream. I was petrified. I just, froze. This thing stepped out from behind him, and he looked like by all accounts, looked like a skeleton. And I would say he was a man. Not that he had any anatomy that you could tell that. It was just his look. And his facial features, it was almost as though there was skin on them, because he could manipulate his facial features, although it was skeletal-like.
Oh.
His body was skeletal, the whole thing, he was all skeleton. And what I remember distinctly is great, big, huge, bulging blue eyes. I will never forget those eyes. If you see some of these Halloween decorations that depict these skeletons with big blue eyes, he was kind of like that, only a little more it's hard to explain. I still haven't found the right words to explain this thing, but he was a little more humanoid, yet still skeleton. Anyway, as he stepped out, and like I said, I was just scared to death. I couldn't even catch enough air to scream. And he began to walk, and he was the whole time he's like making sure that he's got my attention. And with each time he sees my terrified little body in this bed, my mom is right next to me. I didn't even move to wake her. I couldn't move. His grin even widened even further. I mean, you could really see how he was being delighted by what he was doing to me. And of course, obviously, I'm the only one seeing him, and it's just, as I mentioned, my mom and I. And he starts to step forward, but not, away from me, towards this cabinet that we used to have underneath of the bedroom window. Now, there was a little tiny bit of light coming in from the street lamp that was outside this window, but not much. This is a community that was like just a smattering of houses, and ours being the oldest, because it had obviously been there for who knows, 100 years, maybe more. Anyway, he started to step towards this cabinet, and his movement wasn't fluid. It was more jagged, or almost like a strobe like movement. But I mean, I could literally see every part of his skeletal figure just moving, like I said, in a jagged motion towards this cabinet. Now, in that cabinet, I always kept all my kid supplies, school supplies. I started school at 4 years old, so I had coloring books, crayons, the little tiny dull-edged scissors and stuff like that were kept in there. And I religiously kept my things in there, never deviated from these practices. So he walked toward, or stepped toward, the cabinet and opened the cabinet, and he turned and looked back to see if I was still watching, which obviously I was. And again, this smile of his, you could just count every tooth in his grin. It just widened and widened, and he reached in, and when he reached in, he turned back around, and he pulled something out, and I wasn't sure, I still can't really breathe or scream. It doesn't happen. It seems like it's happening, like taking forever, but it really doesn't. It's a lot faster, but being able to explain it, I have to slow it down a little bit, okay? Because it did happen a little bit faster. But of course, as a child, I couldn't give you any concept of time, or even time of the day for that matter. And when he reached in and he pulled an object out, and then as he turned around, I noticed what he had in his hands were my scissors, and he came at me with a snipping motion. Okay.
Holy
Like,
crap.
yeah, exactly. Came at me with a snipping motion. And again, he's just delighted. This thing is just absolutely delighted by the terror in my face. I finally caught enough air to scream, and I scrambled over my mother, or underneath the covers, by the way. I scrambled over my mother, and she didn't even know what was going on, and obviously worried what has happened to me. Maybe I had a spider bite or some sort of thing, but she's holding me tightly, trying to comfort me. Now I'm underneath that cover, up against her body, as tight as I can be. And you know, as a little kid, today I wouldn't do this, but as a little kid, I did. I peeked underneath the blanket just enough to see and hope that he was gone. And that thing's face was right next to mine, with the scissors clipping
Oh,
again in my face. Yeah, yeah.
Tony,
And
no.
it gets crazier. It gets crazier. This is my first, this is my
Jesus.
first encounter, and I've had so many since, but nothing like this. Um, anyway, yeah, so I'm freaking out, obviously. And like I said, absolutely really crazy now. My mom just jumps up and she flips the light. And by this time, my grandmother and my sister come rushing in, because I was never that type of child to just go crazy like that. That's just wasn't my personality. Um, I never displayed any kind of crying like that before. And I mean, not even when I had broken eardrum once or anything like that. I mean, nothing like that. I never acted like that. And anyway, as my grandmother, my sister come rushing in, and my mom checks me over with the light and notices everything's all good. I don't have a fever. Nothing is wrong. No spider bite. I'm not pointing to anything on my body. Everything's okay. So my grandmother suggests, well, let's just switch rooms. Have Maria sleep with you, and Toni can come in here and sleep with me. And I did. So the next morning, I didn't even get a wink of sleep from thereafter. I just kind of laid there in grandma's bed, shivering and crying and sniffling still, because nobody knew what the heck I had just went through. They still didn't realize that it was paranormal and not, a physical thing. But anyway, so the next morning, everybody was up and getting ready for work. I believe my mom probably had already left. I don't know. I can't remember. But my grandmother usually would take us to school, or I would walk with my sister. And I had to go back into the bedroom, and I'm just like walking around the corner, like just scared to death to even enter my mom's room, and looking for my shoes. And I went around to the side of the bed, just like really tiptoeing. And of course, my face is darting everywhere, looking to see if this monster is going to come back out. And my shoes were not where I had kept them, on the side of the bed, which would have been that side I was sleeping on. So I carefully just, again, still just so nervously walked around the other side where I had peeked out from, against my mom's body, when I jumped over her, and my scissors were on the floor. The scissors that this thing was tormenting me with, they're terrorizing me with, were on the floor. That cabinet door was open. And,
Tony, you gave me
it's
the chills.
still,
I'm
I
really
mean, I'm
sorry.
64, 60 years later, this thing is still that vivid in my mind. It won't go
Jesus.
away. I put it out of my, I had to condition my mind to leave a lot of that alone and put it away, because obviously, I got to tell you, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and guy, I'm going to say even the 90s, nobody spoke about this stuff, at least not in my circle of people, or
Mhm.
family or friends or anybody like that. So I kept it as a really guarded secret. I didn't share this stuff with anybody. It wasn't until I got on X Twitter about, I don't know, I was on there for probably been on there for maybe 3 years, something like that, maybe something like that, maybe a little more. And started reading people's comments, and I wound up on the paranormal side. And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I didn't realize that there were that many people that have had encounters. It
Mhm.
was absolutely liberating. I was like, wow, incredible how I never knew. I didn't belong to any social media platforms. I just recently joined Facebook for that matter. But I mean, I had an account with Twitter uh, way probably 8, 9 years ago, but I never accessed it. I never bothered with it. I don't even know why I started an account, but it's actually in the wrong name. That's how old it is. Wrong last name. Anyway, so that was the first encounter.
That's
Um,
probably
and what's that, hun?
I was gonna say that's probably the most terrifying encounter I've ever heard.
Tony, you gave me the chills with that, by the way. We
Yeah,
are
well, yeah. It took me a long time to be able to even talk about it. Like I
yeah.
said, I didn't write about this and share it till 60 years later. So it's been a long time coming, and now today, when I talk about or share any of my encounters, it's really in the hopes. It's not so much that sure, I would like people to believe what I'm saying, but even if they don't, it doesn't make it any less true.
Right.
My real reason for doing this is because I was so alone in that world, and having to hold these things back without having anybody to talk to, that by sharing my stories now, I hope that it helps others, because I know that I have found comfort in finding out that other people have gone through paranormal or had some really bad, terrifying experiences, and just to know that you're not alone is really a big comfort. It really is. But in that same house, if you'd like me to go ahead and
Oh,
go on,
please
unless
keep
you want to
going.
ask me
Keep
any
going.
questions. Okay. In that same house, thankfully, I mean, I didn't have any other encounters except for one in that same house. A little friend of mine from school, I guess we were probably in first grade, which would have made me maybe what 6 years old, because I got held back in the first grade because I had been, I had started school too soon. So anyway, maybe we were in second grade. I can't say for sure. But anyway, she came over to spend the night at my house, and we had this rollout bed in the living room, and it was right next to a big fireplace that practically occupied an entire wall. And we were giggling, like kids do, and we had the TV on for a little while, and of course it was time to shut the TV off and kind of quiet down, and mom's saying, you guys really got to get to sleep and that kind of thing. So she just left a light on, in the kitchen area so my little friend could at least find her way to the restroom. And we're just sleeping. We're kind of facing each other. I'm closest to the fireplace, and we're looking at each other. And then, before long, we began to drift off to sleep. And then she was sound asleep. And I got that feeling again, that I hadn't had that feeling in so long, that I wasn't sure what was happening. But I felt that something was literally staring at me, and it was right next to me. And as I said, I'm on my left side. My friend was on her right side. We're facing each other. This thing, whatever it was, came from right by the fireplace, and it was standing over me. All I can say was it was like a shadow figure. And I can only assume that it came out of the fireplace, or the wall for that matter. But it stood over, and I could actually see it kind of bend over looking at me, and I knew I'm feeling this thing, and I'm like tensing up, and my biggest worry was that my little friend would wake up. I was like, oh God, don't wake up. And it stepped around to the foot of the bed where we were sleeping, as I said, the rollout bed, and it just stood there for a moment. Now I couldn't really see facial features. I could only see that this is a really, really huge, tall, dark shadow figure. Probably, in a sense, it looked like it was cloaked, but I can't actually say that for absolute sure. But it stood at the foot of the bed. again, I couldn't really see a whole lot of facial feature, just it was very dark. And not the room, but the entity. And then it stepped over by my little friend. And as I mentioned, she was fast asleep and it leaned over her in the same manner that it did me. And then, like it was observing her. And then it just stepped back and this is just the weirdest thing. A hole literally just opened up in the floor and this thing descended downward and it closed. I mean, I
Hold on.
never told. Okay.
You saw a portal open up and it went.
I guess it would be a portal.
And
Yeah,
it
I never
descended
thought of it
into
as
it.
that. Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
What the
I
hell?
think, honestly, Blaine, I think that when children see things so, when we're exposed to something that is so absolutely insane, like paranormal world, and or what I call the nether world or the other world, um, our eyes are opened so clearly when we're tiny. And,
Yeah.
in my family, it's kind of a trait. It's kind of a trait. I mean, my grandmother she had her own experiences. My mom, my sister, but not as much as me. Mine were just really, really vivid, really vivid. And I mean, when I'm wide awake, which is mind blowing. These things happen to me when I'm wide. I'm still,
Yeah.
I have had, uh, seen entities as just as far back as only 6 months ago in this house.
Holy
So
smokes.
that's another story. I'll get to it, but that one wasn't bad. But I have seen shadow figures in this house, just like dart by, just out of the blue. It usually happens, like I said, in the middle of the night. As I mentioned, I have a very weird sleep schedule. I go to bed early, but I'm up by midnight, usually every day. So my because of my sleep schedule, I'm up in the middle of the night, which, a lot of people who study this, paranormal stuff, say that around anywhere from I guess 2 to 4 a.m. is the prime time for activity to happen. I don't know for positive, but I know that when things happen to me, it is in the middle of the night when I'm up, because that's just as I said, that's just
Mhm.
my pattern of sleep every day, every day. So anyway, back to this thing. It, I never thought of it as a portal. That's cool. So anyway, so it descended and then it just closed up. Again, I was just freaking out looking at my friend thinking, oh my gosh, I hope I know she didn't see anything, but I will never tell her because wouldn't want her to not want to spend the night again.
Right.
I mean, how selfish, huh? But I never did tell her. And by the way, I never asked her to spend the night again. So, because I worried about that, and no little children that I played with ever said, well, I've got this, and I've seen this, and I've got him. And, I never had an imaginary friend in my life when I was a child, never had an imaginary friend. So it wasn't anything like that. If I played Tea Party, I knew there was nobody there.
Mhm.
I never even suspected, or thought to say it was my dolls, and that's all it was. But later in life, of course, as I mentioned, I had a lot of other encounters, and another one was a malevolent physical attack. And this happened in, I want to say, uh 2000, maybe 2010 or 11, something like that, 2010 or 11. And I was about 50 years old. So I lived in this house that I had just purchased. My mom had passed away, and I was living in Louisiana for about a year, and I flew back to help settle her estate because I was the executor. And my sister poor thing. She was going through an awful lot with mom's death. And so I came back and stayed with her, left everything behind in Louisiana, which I absolutely loved living in the South. And came back and we started to settle her estate and so forth. And by the time that got cleared and we divided the inheritance, I went ahead and bought myself a little house. And places that my realtor had taken me to, a lot of them were not, they were either not in the greatest area or out of my price range, out of my budget. And you got a call that a house had just gone up on the market, and it was but maybe a mile or two away from where we were just at. So we went ahead and went over there. Now the house was built in 1932, usually a little bit older than I would have preferred, because I don't really care for old houses. It's old houses that I have problems with every time.
Right.
There's always something that was left behind at an old house that wants to talk to me or visit me. So I don't like old houses. But the house was just adorable. It was charming, and I fell in love with it, on site. And so I went ahead and made the offer, and the gentleman, he went for it, and before long I was in my own little house that I owned, and it was wonderful. So I was there the house was only about 900 square feet. That included the garage. It was really tiny. There was originally, it was only one bedroom on this house, in this house, a little living room, very small kitchen, but in the one bedroom, there was only one bathroom in the entire house. Now, what they did is they built on another room, and then from that room you could go into the garage. That was also an addition. Both of these two, the room and the garage, were both additions. The house had been upgraded with all sorts of nice things, new carpets and flooring and things like that, but that bathroom was only in the one bedroom, the original bedroom. So you had to go in through there to access the restroom. Now in there as well, there was just this real skinny or narrow closet that went straight in, almost in the same direction, basically the same direction as the bathroom. So if you walked in and you accessed the room from the right, through the door, the bathroom would be on the left, and a portion of wall, and then this closet. So one night I had my dog and she and I lived there, and it was, like I said, it was a perfect house with a lot of room for her to run. And I wanted to do something different. I don't know what possessed me, because I used that back room for my bedroom instead. But this one night, like I said, I don't know what possessed me. That room was only used, the original room was only used for like my clothing. There was an armoire in there with some of my other clothing, because the closet was so small.
Right.
I had a drafter's desk in there, and a chest of drawers, a dresser in there as well. And then I used the restroom in the shower, the shower area. So I went ahead and I just thought, we're going to do a little camping here. So I grabbed a chaise lounge chair and laid it out, and I took my Bonnie's bedding and put her bedding over by the window, and she was all settled for the night. My lounge chair was right near the drafter's desk. And then I just closed the door. Now, there was no TV or anything in that room, no radio or anything. It was just basically all quiet. For whatever reason, I don't even know why I closed the door, because it wasn't even locked. It didn't even have a lock on it. The door had no lock on it whatsoever. And I don't know, maybe I thought somebody might come by and I just didn't want to be wakened. Anyway, so we went ahead and we got ourselves all snuggled into bed, and the whole world was silent, really, really silent, even silent outside, which was kind of odd for that area. But again, I could see some light streaming through from the shade and the street light. Almost the
Yeah.
same setup, as far as the
Mhm.
tiny bit of light filtering in. And eventually just fell asleep, but just absolutely comfortable and sleeping soundly. And all of a sudden, I was literally pulled out of bed, bed or lounge chair,
Yeah.
lifted up out off the bed. My feet didn't even touch floor. And I was tossed around the room. All this time, I'm thinking that there is an intruder, but the door is closed. And the moment you get, my eyes are already adjusted to the dark, because even though you're asleep, you can open your eyes. You've already, even through your eyelids, you're going to get adjusted to the
Yeah.
dark or light, somewhat. Anyway, there's nothing there, but my arms are flailing everywhere, just trying to fight off whatever it is, or whoever it is that's in that room. Meanwhile, my dog is yelping too. Something, whatever it is that got me, and is treating me like a rag doll, is somehow injuring her. But this is all happening simultaneously at the same time. Now, I somehow grab the door. This room is tiny. It's not even a 12 by 12 room, so it's not like I have to run to reach this door. I can practically reach it from where I'm at. And I'm trying to open this door. Like I said, this door did not lock. There was absolutely no reason for me not being able to open it. And no matter how I pulled, tugged, turned the knob, whatever it was, the door would not open. It wasn't long. I mean, I was there for mere seconds probably, and it was less than a minute. But again, my body is picked up, and this time it's thrown in straight into the bathroom. And in the bathroom, I had a ceramic towel holder. And my body made contact. I mean, I was slammed against this thing so hard
Crap.
that it actually broke it. And I felt like my ribs were broken. And I sunk down between the toilet and the shower, because the shower was this is a tiny, like not even a closet type bathroom. It's so small. And I'm sunken down between the two uh not appliances, but you know what I mean, between the toilet and the shower. And I mean, I can barely catch my breath, and my dog is still yelping in that room. She starts pacing, and she's trying to find a way out. Well, I mean, I can't even breathe, because like I said, I broke this ceramic towel holder, and the wind was knocked out of me, so I'm trying to gasp for air. And it was, I don't know how to explain this, but it was almost like I had just barely got my air back in my lungs. And I was like, my body was like, this is like a movie, like a horror movie playing out in my bedroom. And I'm the star, I'm the star
Yeah.
character, because I was just swooshed out of that bathroom, lifted up again. And this time, I mean, again, my dog is still just frantically trying to find her way out. And I was thrown head first into the closet, this narrow closet, like I said. I don't know at which point, I'm sure I got a concussion by all this banging and thrashing that was done to me, and how I hit things. I don't even know what I hit in the closet, but I had, suitcases, really hard suitcases, not the soft type, in that closet, and all kinds of things were in that closet. Anyway, so then I was like pulled out by my ankles. I don't really remember much after that, because I didn't wake up till I don't know if it was an hour. I can't even give you a time of how long it took before I woke up. But when I did, I barely opened my eyes, and my dog is still pacing the room. And she's like, I can tell she's thirsty. She's freaked out. She's just like panting and still whimpering, like crying. And I was so scared to move, because I didn't know if this was over yet. And thankfully it was sunlight outside, sunrise. So there was all the light, there was plenty of light that was shining through. And I barely could get up. I staggered up, and I mean, I was in so much pain. My head felt like, I don't know, I can't, the pain in my head was absolutely horrific. And my eyesight was, I was very, very dazed. But I mean, that's where I think I might have had a concussion, because my eyesight was really blurred. And it took me quite a bit to try to stumble up to my feet. But I wanted to get to that door. Now, this is, like I said, it's just early morning, and I want to get to that door. I want to get out of this room. And, I'm stumbling up, and I'm holding on to, who knows, I guess it was the dresser. And like I said, I was in just horrific pain. I'm looking, just glancing a tiny bit at the room, and I'm telling you, this room was absolutely destroyed, like a tornado hit it. Everything was upturned. My drafting desk was upturned. Those, if you know anything about drafting desks, they're super heavy. And it was upturned, on its side. There was no way that I would have been able to do that, because it was probably about a 200-pound, maybe more, drafting desk, really solid. My armoire was just like splinters. Clothing was piled up. Anything that could be broken was broken. In addition to other things in that bathroom, the closet was just like, it was like somebody went in there and just started pulling all the clothing out and throwing it everywhere, broken hangers, you name it. But I finally got to the door. Again, the room is small, but I'm in pain. I can barely focus. And I got the door open, and my sweet darling puppy, she just bolted for the door. And there was a chair that was right outside that bedroom, just a regular living room chair. And I sat down on that to catch my breath before I could get to the front door so I could open that for her. Because just moving at all was really, really labored, is really difficult, and breathing, because whatever I did either bruised my ribs or what have you, it really made it painful to breathe. So I opened the door, and she rushed out. Oh my goodness. Well, people have asked me, did I go to the hospital? No, I didn't. I don't know how I could have explained to an ER doctor how I hurt myself.
Right.
Because there's no way I could have told him, well, I was attacked by some invisible entity. This thing had the power of 20 men on steroids, for goodness sakes. It was incredible how I was just literally lifted off this thing without touching floor and thrown around, tossed around this room like a rag doll, in addition to whatever was happening to my poor dog. I mean, whatever it was attacking me and attacking her at the same time. And I can't say that I felt like hands pulling me. It was more like a force of just power. Very, very, very crazy. I'm just grateful I've never encountered anything like this again. Well, time went by, and I never slept in that room again. Instead, I went ahead and used the room that was furthest in the back of the house. But I still had to use the restroom on occasion, obviously, to shower and so forth.
Right.
But right after that, I probably just did sponge baths in the kitchen, and I washed my hair in the kitchen sink. I didn't even want to go in there for any period of time, except for really having to go to the bathroom, because I'm scared to death. Scared to death of going in there. So from thereafter, my dog wouldn't even step over the threshold of that room. And she would, when I had to go in there for showers, when I finally never felt comfortable, but when I knew it's time for me to just don't be so afraid. I got to go in there. I've got to do this. I've just, you have to give yourself a pep talk. And she would just whimper, crying for me to hurry or whatever, begging me to come back out of that room. It was really, really bad. I never told anybody about it. I did, however, as to go back up to my ribs, when I looked at my ribs, they were black. I had a big lump that was just huge and really black. And maybe I could have, got away with saying something at a hospital, but I didn't want to take the chance because, like I said, it definitely looked like I was beat up. I was bruised all over, scratched, bruised, it was pretty horrific.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
How long have you lived in, or like the time period of like, how long have you lived in that house?
The house where I was attacked?
Yeah, where you were
Or
thrown.
first, okay, the house where I was attacked, I lived there for about 14 years. And I never
I
had
would
a
have
problem.
left the night or right after
Yeah,
all of that
I
happened.
wanted to, believe me, darling, I wanted to. I bought the house in like 2004, 2004, 2005. And I never had a problem, but I never spent much time in that room. Like I said, I only used it basically for storage and such, and clothing and that kind of thing. So the only time I ever spent in there was to take a shower, from that adjoining bathroom, and maybe grab clothes and then go back into my room to change and such. I didn't even use that room to blow dry hair or put makeup on or any of that kind of thing. So it was just like, I don't know, it was like a kind of a byproduct of the house. It was
Jeez
the
Louise.
whole thing, that whole setup was. Um, but anyway, so I'm really pretty intuitive about things like this. I've on occasion told people going into their house, knowing that somebody died there, and then absolutely having it confirmed by them that's yes, in fact, somebody did. But it wasn't like that this time. Whatever this was, it was laying dormant. Um, when I found out, when I talked to a neighbor that lived across the street, this was, I don't know how long it was, maybe a month or two afterwards, or maybe it was a year or two. I can't quite tell you when it was. But she and a group of friends used to use that house as a place for orgies and different kinds of rituals,
There it is.
even seances.
There it is.
Mhm. When I
Yeah.
found that out, I was shocked and I was angry, because if had I known that this sort of thing was happening in my house prior to me being there, I never would have bought the place. I never would have bought it. So I can only assume that whatever it was that was in that room had to have been left behind by whatever they were practicing. They didn't send it back. That's all I can come up with. I mean, as it's a logical conclusion to me, for me anyway. I don't know. Again, never talking to anybody about this sort of thing. It's I'm just now learning the terminology for so much of this stuff.
Right.
Um, I never studied it. You know, you, when you go through that kind of thing, you don't look for it. You
Yeah.
don't, I don't want to, it wasn't until later in life that I really wanted to know what the heck really did happen. Why did this stuff happen to me? Why does it still follow me? So, you know, when I spoke with her, and she said that, she and some other people in the neighborhood had this like little club, and with the people that actually lived in that house prior to me. And she had lived in lived in her house for quite some time before I even bought my little house. And I had just, talked to her like with a, wave, just cordial kind of thing. And we never really talked a lot or anything like that. But when she shared that with me, I was really thrown by that. And I thought, good grief, you did this to me. You did this to me,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, and I to be truthful, to be quite frank, I never spoke to her again. And I can't remember if she moved out before me or I moved out first, but I kind of think she moved out first. Um, and when she was gone, I had no sadness about it whatsoever. But like I said, I never went in that room again for anything except for what I had to run in there and snatch and grab real quick and then run back out. And the occasional shower and that, the usual kind of things like that. So that was that. But about, say, 2017, I sold the house, and I had no problem selling it. I sold it way below market too. But the people that bought it told me what they were going to do with it. So what they went ahead and did is they tore down the wall, the existing wall between the living room and that original bedroom, and made it one whole room. And then they put another bathroom in the house, in addition to that one, and some other upgrades and things like that. And to my knowledge, nothing has ever happened since. So I'm guessing that whatever it was concentrated in that one room. And like I said, it just lay dormant till it had the opportunity to attack me at my most vulnerable state.
That's interesting.
When I'm sleeping. That's all I can conclude. I
That's really
actually
interesting.
don't even, that one's a hard one to try to understand.
Yeah.
But, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I don't like to throw the word around very often, Taylor. You know this. I don't like to throw around the word like demonic or anything like that. But do you believe it was, or do you think it was just something truly just negative and malevolent?
Well, me, for in both accounts, the one that my two worst, I absolutely believe it was like a demonic presence. But do I think it was an actual demon or devil? I can't say that. I just think that whatever it was, like the first time, I believe whatever it was, that I personally believe that little boy, that entity, was probably murdered by this other entity. At some given time, either occupying that house or the land itself, prior to the Anaheim being as an established city. I really do. It's just it's my gut feeling, and it saddens me every time I think about it, because I believe he's being held captive. And I believe that honestly, I believe that whatever we are in life is what we take with us in spirit. And to me, anybody that hurts a child is a demon. They're evil beyond anything I can even muster a word for. So yeah, I call them demonic. I call them demons, but that doesn't mean it was actually a demon.
Right.
So yeah, and the same goes with whatever was attacking me. It could have just been a very angry spirit. It could have been just a very angry, who knows what. Some have thought, well, could it have been a poltergeist? I really doubt it. A poltergeist is a noisy ghost that can, make noise and manipulate things, but it's not likely that they'll attack you like that. That is something that is considered demonic attack.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to ask and see.
Yeah.
But
sure.
now that you said you're starting to learn some of the vernacular about, spirits and
Right.
things like that, have you decided to like try and get some like small equipment for yourself tested out if you're still seeing stuff in your house?
I just my husband is like, I have the greatest husband. I just adore him. He is so level-headed. He has never encountered anything, and this is a really brilliant businessman. Before he retired, and still is excellent in business. He's just never had any kind of encounters whatsoever. But he encourages my writing and that sort of thing, and my my podcasts and such, because he's kind of like getting a little interested in it. And we were talking, I said, well, you think we should get something that we see if there's any kind of EVPs or anything like that. And now, going out to areas where I live, or nearby cities, there's a lot of hauntings out this way,
Yeah.
and a lot of times there is everywhere, there's a lot of haunted areas that are considered haunted because the cities are very, very old, except for the city I live in. It isn't, it's quite new. But some of the buildings are very, very old and they are paranormal hotspots apparently. But investigating your own house, from what I've understood,
It's kind of
by
a
certain
no-no, but I
is
was just curious.
dicey. But I'd like to get either equipment for when we go on walks in some of
Mhm.
these areas and see if I could pick up any EVPs or, any voice phenomena or something like that to see if I could hear something that something's talking to me or talking where there's no talking. It's a thought, definitely. But
Okay.
yeah, to investigate where I'm actually at, I don't think I want to do that. I don't want any invitation.
No, that's fair.
True.
That's fair.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, in this house, then this house is only about 5 years old. We're only the second owners of this house. It's as I mentioned, I've had a few little weird things happen. Sometimes I'll find pictures turned around. They're in the frame pictures that are on this one stand and they'll just be turned around. One especially gets turned around most, and I know my husband's not doing it. Nobody else comes into this house except for a cleaning lady, and she would never do something like that. And just weird little things something will be missing, and then all of a sudden it's there again. Just weird little things, but I'd be sitting in the living room and you have the TV on and I'm, doing my social media things or what have you again in the middle of the night. And I would see, a dark shadow figure just rush by. Like I can see it just
Mhm.
rush by, in the hallway or from the bathroom to the guest bedroom and that kind of thing. But one in particular encounter that I had that was actually kind of sweet. We had a friend that had to undergo some surgery. And the surgery wasn't expected to be anything, any kind of problems whatsoever. It was a shoulder surgery, I believe. He was having like a rotator cuff surgery. And I was sitting on the couch and I could see from the corner of my eye, I'm folding laundry, and there's somebody standing right here, right next to me. And I looked to see is it my husband? He was in his office, and I look and I'm like, hmm. And I'm like, Mark, did you come in here? And he comes walking. He goes, huh? So he
Oh
obviously
my.
didn't. Couple hours later, we found out that our friend had passed away on the operating table.
Oh.
And I'm absolutely certain that that was him coming to say goodbye. Because it wasn't anything that was, I didn't have any fear or anything like that at all. And where he stood was the last place he would have been the last time he visited us. It was right by a chair that he sat in.
Oh.
So I'm certain that that's who it was. Yeah.
This is
So
really nice.
finding out that he had passed away was, yeah, it was very sad, but we didn't know until hours later. So those are the things that have happened here. Now let me see, the house that we owned prior to this one, this was in California, when we lived in California. And I was working on my computer that was where my back was away from the living room and hallway and that portion of the house, because it was those built-in desks that was in the kitchen, and I had my table Mac computer, the
Mhm.
regular kind, stationed there, and I was just getting ready to turn on my computer again. This is in the middle of the night, and I can see I had enough light in the house on, and I could see a shadow go from my husband's office straight into the bathroom, which is right across the way. This is the beginning of the pandemic, by the way. This was in 2020.
Oh, geez.
Okay.
And yeah, and so I see that, and honest to goodness, it was my husband's profile, his shape. It really looked like him, but in the black screen of my computer, I couldn't really see color. So I turned around and I called his name again, called his name, and nothing. And his office in this bathroom is dark. There's only a dim light down this hallway, which leads down into our master bedroom. And I'm like, what is he doing up in the middle of the night? And I get up and I start to step towards that hallway, and I'm like, but nobody's come out. Whatever this was, it walked from his office, which straight into this restroom directly across the way, but never came out. Now I thought, did I miss it? And I go into the bedroom, down into our master bedroom, and he's sound asleep. He did not get up. He did not get up. He didn't even rustle when I mean, this is like instant. He didn't even, rustle a little bit in the bed when I opened the door. And I'm like really, really just like, oh my gosh. I got to tell you though, we lived across the street from a cemetery. I'm not afraid of cemeteries as a whole, ever.
Right.
I have no problems going to cemeteries. I do that, I visit some cemeteries to take pictures of really old headstones and such that I write about. So I have no problem with going to cemeteries, and I have no problem with the dead in general. I don't, you know. So living across the street from a cemetery, we had, like I said, this was COVID. So there was all kinds of funerals that were unattended. People couldn't even say goodbye to their family members and such. And it was very, very sad. You'd have 3-4 funerals a day, 6 days a week. It was ridiculous. And again, it was very, very sad. Well, I got so nervous with seeing that shadow figure passing behind me, that I just wouldn't even work at my computer anymore. So I went out and bought a laptop, which is the same one I'm using right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could sit on the couch and at least be facing that area of the hallway and the my husband's room, office, and a bathroom. And I am just sitting there and I'm working away, and I had just enough light on again in the house. I even to this day, I will not sleep in the dark, but so I don't sit in the dark either. Anyway, so I'm working away and I can sense something staring at me. I mean, like it freezes you. It's like, okay, what's going on? And I looked over I'm directly across from the fireplace, and right next to the fireplace, staring right at me, is this little small entity. I don't know if this is a child or just a small entity. Facial features, I could see very clearly. I could see shoulders and arms, part of the torso. Not the legs seem to be kind of faded. And now I'm a Christian woman, so the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "Precious Jesus!" I got scared to death. I mean, it's like I didn't know what else to say. And this thing, it was the strangest thing, because it looks again looks kind of like a hologram, X-ray. I honestly don't know how to explain this any better with any better description, but it just merely turned around and just walked right into the fireplace, and it was gone. Well, let me tell you, the next time I was doing any kind of work on my on my laptop, I had lights brightly shining
Yeah, for
everywhere.
sure.
And I was like turning lights on me. I had them going on in the hallway, every hallway, kitchen, you name it, they were on. It was bright. I didn't want to just have to encounter this kind of thing again. Well, it was probably about a week later. My husband had stayed in the guest bedroom to read, because even though I can't stand to be in the dark in the bedroom, I can't handle the night lights right next to me, because I won't sleep. They're too bright. So he was in his office, in our guest bedroom reading, and apparently he fell asleep. Well, I was already in bed, because again, as I said, I go to bed a lot earlier than he does, and I'm up a lot earlier. And This is it's just about maybe four, I don't know, 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, something like that. And I had just enough light from the hallway and the bathroom that's in the master, just where the toilet is, because you have the doors that you can close there. And it's just enough light in the room. And I open my eyes, I'm facing the door where my husband would be laying. Again, I feel something that's like wake up. And I mean, it woke me up like bing. And here's that same little
Oh
Taylor
my
finds that
gosh.
she's cute. It's the same little entity staring at me from my husband's side of the bed. Okay. I mean, this is that same face that I saw near the fireplace that turned and went into the fireplace, staring at me, peeking over the side of the bed, looking straight at me. I have no idea how long this thing was staring at me. I just lifted the covers, I lifted them off, and I go, okay, it's time to get up. And
Oh
I
my
just got up and I
gosh.
told my husband, don't ever fall asleep in another room without me. So
So
yeah.
okay, so there's the theory out there. I swear I've read this somewhere that people it's kind of like taking the inspiration from like The Shining, I guess, where you can be a lighthouse for entities and spirits type of thing. Do you feel like you're that type of person because of how
Yeah.
much stuff has happened?
Yeah, I always thought it was just an energy. Well, I can't say I always thought that. I used to think I was haunted. And that's not really a nice thought, when you think
No,
about,
when
well,
you're like
something
you got all
haunted
these
is like,
attachments and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't believe I have any attachments. Other people have said that I was psychic, or I have psychic seer, and then the psychic energy, or whatever it is that they're attracted to me. But yeah, because I still go back to the fact that being so tiny and seeing something so visual and so plain, and then literally having proof the next morning with my scissors on the floor, that whatever it is, my eyes were opened at a very early age. And yeah, I have an energy that is attracted to me. I mean, I could go into a restaurant and that might have had some sort of weird thing in it, and I can feel it. I don't speak, I never spoken to a spirit. I have never dabbled in any kind of divination practice, no seances, no Ouija boards,
Mhm.
nothing. It's not something, if you've already do this, you, I'm not looking for it.
Right.
It just finds me. It just does. Um, it's one of those things that it absolutely finds me. Um, it's always unsettling. It's not always terrifying, like the one, the last ones here in this
Yeah.
house. That's not terrifying. And then certainly the house that we lived in before wasn't terrifying. But two of my incidences were definitely terrifying. But I've had others, the house that my husband and I lived in prior to the little entity house. um, he was off working, and he was out of town, on business. And this is a huge house. He and I owned, and for whatever reason, we just had this really big house. My dog was still living at the time, same dog that went through the attack with me in that other house. And she would sleep downstairs because she was a collie, and they're kind of timid
Mhm.
um, dogs, and really precious dogs, but she would never go up the stairs. She had never experienced stairs, so she didn't trust the stairs. Plus, they were wood steps, and she wasn't used to that. Afraid maybe she would slip or what have you. So her bed was downstairs. Well, I slept in the master bedroom, and of course we had alarms and security and all that good stuff. So I punch in the alarm, get it all set for the night. I go upstairs. Like I said, my husband's out of town, and I'm in bed, and I literally feel I'm just about ready to doze off, and I literally feel something lay right next to me. I mean, I could feel the depression of the bed go down some, you know, there was something laying right next to me, and my eyes just started open, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, is there an intruder? And I knew better. There's no way there would have been an intruder because the alarms would have went off. There's no way. And you know, after I darted my eyes open, I closed them real tight because I don't want to look at things anymore. Don't want to look at these things. I don't want to see them. So whatever it was right next to me. I mean, like spooning with me. Don't know what this was, but whoever it was, they were making themselves very comfortable in my bed, you know. And no, I didn't get any more sleep that night, but you know, eventually that the sensation was gone. And I mean, the feeling that, you know, there was no, all of a sudden there was no more, but I could literally feel it. I could feel it. So, I mean, there's no telling if somebody had died in that house, you know, it was an older house than this one is. And, you know, maybe 10 years, who knows, you know, unless you have the history of houses and you check all of that out. And sometimes you won't even find that history because my first house in Anaheim, that one that happened in 1964, that terrible one, with the skeleton. I've been searching the history with the Historical Society of Anaheim, trying to get some of the history of prior owners and such. And it's very difficult because if some of these people or what have you lived in that house prior to 1959, it could have been in the 1800s, and you can't find out who lived there before you.
Right.
But the area, this is what I did find out, which was quite interesting. The area that we lived in and where that house was, it was called the Gates of Anaheim. It was just a section where you had north, south, east, and west, and we were basically centered in the middle of those gates, which is, to me, first thing I thought of. Yeah, gates of what? You know, gates of what? You
Yeah.
know, because it was a historic area before the city of Anaheim was actually really established. You know, and it was can't remember if it was vineyards. It was vineyards, and then it was citrus farms, you know, and things like that. So it really wasn't, it was farmland. But those were in order to get into this area, you had to enter one of those four gates.
Hmm.
So that was a little interesting to find out. But it's difficult to find history on the older houses. Because again, it could have been something that happened within that house or something that happened on the land prior, just on the land itself,
Right.
before the house was even built.
That's nuts.
So
Do you have any other questions for Toni?
I don't have any questions, but I have like just a comment. Like you are very wonderful, and I'm so sorry that you've experienced like the most horrifying things I've ever heard someone talk about.
Yeah, for real.
mm,
But
thank
thank you
you.
for sharing.
Like,
I'm
thank-
I'm honored.
I
I really
appreciate you
am.
reaching out.
Thank
Like, really, like,
you.
I appreciate you reaching out. Holy smokes.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, it was very hard to live with. You know, it was very, very lonely for a lot of years. Just, you know, 60 years.
Mhm.
It was very difficult. So a lot of times, most of my life, I just pushed it back in the back of my mind and never spoke about it. I mean, less than a handful of people knew, and they had to be my very closest that I would ever tell about what I had encountered, because you just, it's not exactly an icebreaker. Hey, guess what's happening? You
Yeah,
know, in a
right. Like, here we
conversation,
are.
you want to, yeah, you want to, you know, kind of keep that under wraps because people could think you're nuts, and that's what I always thought. I can't tell anybody because they'll think I'm nuts.
Mhm.
But it's not. You know, your people aren't nuts that experience things. They can be perfectly normal. There is every walk of life that can experience something that's unexplainable. You know, for me, it's still unexplainable, but I have a better understanding today. Now, I mean, and that's because of social media.
Right.
You know, it's really because of social media and the people that actually have reached out, and I've reached out to them, and others who have just, left comments of things that they had gone through. And I mean, I just hope that others will find hope in knowing that they're not alone.
Mhm.
It's a bad place to be when you are alone in that.
Right.
And I feel great now. I feel good that I'm not alone.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Toni. I appreciate you coming on and telling us your stories.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Yeah. I don't have any other questions for you, Toni. I again truly
Okay.
appreciate you coming on.
Well, it's my pleasure, hon. My pleasure indeed for both of you. Thank you so much for inviting me, and
Absolutely.
I hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We had chatted in the emails about where you are, and if we're ever out that way, we are going to contact you, and I'm going to bring you out on one of our investigations. I think
that
it'd be
would
fun
be
for you to come.
great.
I think it'd be fun for you to come.
Oh yeah,
That,
absolutely.
you know what? No, really? Really? No, I really want to do that. I mean, I just decided with my husband, I want to go on one of these ghost tours. There's a ghost tour that's
you
not,
should.
That's
I've never
definitely
done
great,
that.
like first experience.
That's so
like,
fun.
Yeah.
I've never done that. I've never done that. I want to do it. It's not far. It's in a neighboring city from me. So I really want to do that. I really want to do that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm in Oklahoma, so you know where to find me. You go ahead and just I can send over my phone number and such. I'll email that to you so you can contact me anytime.
Please do.
Yeah, I will.
That'd be so fun.
You would, that would be so cool. I really do want to try this. I'm a little nervous about it, but I want to try it.
Yes, please. That'd be so fun. All right,
Okay.
I will keep that in mind. If you email me that, we will keep in contact with you then.
Great.
And then we will get that set up when we ever make our way out to Oklahoma.
I mean, we're slowly.
Yeah.
We're slowly getting out there.
We're
Slowly going through states.
Are you really? I'm telling you guys, there are so many places out here that are major hotspots. You can look them up. A lot of them. And I'm just writing stories about them, and I'm visiting them in the sense of just taking pictures so I can, add my articles to the haunted attic. But it's very interesting how many paranormal investigators really find their way out here, because there's so many places that are haunted.
Right.
So I think you guys would have a really good time, and I'd love to tag along.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
But all right.
Well, then that's a promise.
That's a promise. Stamp it in the books.
Okay. There we go. Again, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for having me did this early in the morning. I'm sorry that I took this out of your Saturday.
It's totally fine.
Yeah, I thank you. I appreciate it. I really do. So it was a pleasure meeting you both, and yeah, we'll stay in contact.
Please, the pleasure is ours, and yes, let's. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching this episode of the Ghost in Us podcast. Again, big thank you to Toni for coming on. And I want to give a quick shout out to some of our Patreon members.
We got a couple more.
Oh my goodness. We got the Joe Baxter, our very first patron. We got John Medendorp.
Is that how you say his last name?
Medendorp, yeah.
Sorry, John, I never knew that.
Oh yeah, John Medendorf, thank you so much for the $5 donation. And Jesse,
who is one of our lovely friends who has gifted us stuff and is engaged to one of our best friends.
Yeah.
She's just amazing.
So thank you guys so much for donating to the Patreon. It truly means a lot to us. And if you want to feel like you want to donate $1 to get early access to all of our content, you can go to patreon.com/ghostinus, and for $1, you get access to all of our content 1 day early.
There's a possibility that we might add more to it.
Yes,
as
it's slow and steady wins the race. And again, follow us on social media. We are on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and we have the Facebook podcast discussion group where you can comment and we can discuss anything that happens in the podcast, and the pages where we're just going to share all of our stuff. We have Twitter. You can follow us there over Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Ghost in Us. Instagram at Ghost in Us, and obviously subscribe to us here on YouTube.
Also have TikTok.
Also at TikTok at Ghost in Us.
If you have any stories that you want to share, or if you want to be a guest, please reach out on any of the platforms or our email.
At ghostnus@gmail.com.
We would love to have you on.
Absolutely. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.